Hello, welcome back. And in this video, I'm going to break down why teenagers are feeling so much stress around high school. It's not just about grades and academics, it's about all aspects of high school, the relationships, the culture, fear and anxiety of being there, all kinds of things that are going on inside schools. And we'll delve into what those are and how it's creating stress for your teenager next. In this video, we're going to be talking about the pressures we're putting on our teenagers, the academic, athletic, those kind of things, the culture of the schools and how that can create stress or not, depending on what the culture is, the social, emotional pressures, and that can be tied into the culture of the schools, what that's doing to the brain when the brain is under stress and how that can kind of cycle up. And then what do we need to do about it? What are those skill sets that we can give? And you probably already guessed already where I'll go with that one. All that is what we'll be covering next. In 2014, the American Psychological Association had a study. So yes, it's old. Things probably haven't changed much from my own experience. And that is that teenagers report school as a single largest factor of their stress. Now, school we think of in terms of you going to school for academic development. So no question, that's true. And the pressures that students are under to do well on tests, because there's some subtle pressures here that schools are applying because so much of the funding now is being tied into how well your district does with test scores and all that. But we also understand that college prices are really high and expensive. And if you want to get into a good college, you need good grades, but you also need those good grades to maybe get the financial help that you might need. So all these things are what students are thinking about. It's messaging coming into them. And when you are thinking about, oh, my academic performance now is really going to shape my future. And if I screw up now, then I'm not going to do well in the future. All that adds to stress because they begin thinking about that. They blow that up in proportion. And when you do that, stress is the response. And when you do it repeatedly and often, you get into stuck in this emotion of the stress. You have challenges then performing to your best, and that impacts every area of your life. Let's talk now for a moment about the culture or school climate. There's lots of factors here. One is tied into that academic pressures, right? There are some schools that are they blue ribbon schools. They have this reputation of high academics and all. So there's a culture of trying to perform high. And that culture can be a very good thing, but it has a potential to adding stress. So we've got to be careful about how we kind of communicate that culture and, of course, help teenagers deal with those kind of expectations of what we have. Beyond that, when we think of culture, we're often thinking of the kind of the fear aspect, right? There are a lot of kids going to school with fear because the culture and climate within the school, there's a lot of direct bullying, indirect bullying, a lot of classism within the school, right? Where you exclude, you aren't bullying, but you aren't welcoming. So in some schools, the culture, significant part of the population isn't accepted. You just kind of, they aren't even there. That can be a really traumatic experience for many kids. And they try to seek out, sometimes in the wrong places, how to fit and belong. So that aspect, those different aspects of culture, administrators and parents, and you've got to address it. You've got to begin to try to step back and kind of see what sort of climate and culture is going on there. What are students telling you and reporting? And then how do we make it a welcoming school for kids in general and set high expectations and all. in a way that doesn't overwhelm. One of the big stress factors for a lot of teens is a social emotional aspect and balancing out all the needs and things they want to do as a teenager, right? For many, it's this fear of missing out that can overload them. They want to fit in, so they find clubs to join, sports teams to join. They have their academic pressures that they're putting on themselves. So as they get involved, because they want to be involved, and also, boy, the more involved I am, as they often think or I've been taught, the better chance I have getting into college, because they see how active and involved I am in. When teenagers have that belief and that understanding, they can fall into the trap of overflowing their cup, right? Again, I talk about this quite a bit, in that our cup of time is 1,440 minutes a day. That's it. All of us, same amount. And if we put too much in or try to, it's going to overflow. And it creates a mess. It creates clutter. And that clutter is stress creating, right? We do not do well in clutter. So as teenagers are trying to do all they can, and we encourage this, and it's a good thing to encourage them to try different things. If we aren't giving them the tools to make decisions on what they want to prioritize and how to make those decisions, knowing the size of their cup, understanding what they're already put into it, that something else might have to go. If we aren't training them to do that, stress is definitely the result, and it can be overwhelming stress or persistent feelings of stress. As we've repeated in other videos, when you're under stress, your brain fires off differently, the amygdala gets activated and the biochemistry changes and all that. Your brain's being rewired when you are under stress, and as a teenager, that's important to recognize. It's the idea of chronic stress where that becomes a real problem. So when teens are feeling persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness and, in general, stress, that creates a challenge for them to be at their peak. You cannot perform at your best when you're under that level of stress, that emotion of stress, when you can escape the emotion, and we train teens how to do that, then they can recover and begin to perform well. Now, what does happen sometimes is teens can compartmentalize. So there are some teens who can still perform well in one area, but the other areas of their life begin to fall apart because they transfer the energy and all on the academics. I'm going to do this, do this, do this. And then their ability to perform athletically or in music or in their relationships or all those things begin to fall apart because that stress, that's where it's going to bubble over in those areas of their life. So that we can see sometimes happening with teens. I'm smiling because if you've been watching any of my videos, you know that an important antidote to all this is their mindset and helping them train their mindset. So that's training the beliefs. Beyond just training that, part of really this mindset is developing these beliefs around the importance of managing your emotions, right? So we kind of tapped in there. Then we give them skills to do that. Let me tell you about Victor. So Victor came to me in the program I had. He's a sixth grader. We usually didn't take sixth graders. And it's a long history here. I ended up with a number of his family, and he was near the end of the line. I'm not even going to go into that family background. All right. But Victor's attendance was about 36% or so. Absentee, like he's not going to make it through school. He's going to end up dropping out. With that sort of attendance, he's not going to get through school. There's a whole lot behind that. But we had to help him deal with stress in his life. right? We had to show him how to manage the emotions, help build his self-image and his self-esteem up and some of those beliefs, all these mindset-related stuff. By the time he was in 8th grade, nearing the end of the 8th grade year, his attendance was up to 69% from 36%. That's a huge improvement. And I kept telling everybody who listened, we got to find something for him in high school. If we don't continue with what we're doing, if we don't find a program in the high school that's going to help support what we've done for the last 2.5 years, we're going to lose Victor, right? That's how important it is to continue that work, that mindset work. And it's an ongoing process that we all need to understand, is that when we train our mindset, it's a lifetime process. We give you the tools, but we got to really develop those habits so those habits will last you your whole life. We just come to end of another video. As always, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos. You might also be interested in registering for one of my free webinars. In this case, I would suggest enhance your students' performance through in academics, athletics, the arts, and life. So you can register for that for free. The link will be in the description. Check that out today, and I'll see you in another video.